Now I'm more driven by the desire to help each and every person find their own voice, his or her own voice. But especially for Asian Americans, because that's the group that I have the most familiarity with, and because of I can use my own experiences in life as a springboard to helping younger Asian Americans, professionals, college students, high school students, junior high school students, to really look at themselves in a very, very honest and truthful way, daring to claim who they are, knowing that for many of us it will be hitting up against our parental, societal, familial expectations. And so there's the revolution that has to happen within. And that's something I experienced. And being the fifth daughter in a row, had to happen within me in order to come and break out of whatever was expected of me so that I could find who I was. It's something that women have to do, but I think in the cultural context in which I was raised, it was something that was very, very to do, because we weren't, as girls and women, we weren't encouraged to have our own lives. So the desire to define myself, to have my own identity, meant I had to go against the authority, which is my parents, and I did. And I said I'll go to New York from California because it's the furthest away that I can still be in the States, and they don't know anyone here. So then it allowed me to really live my own life. And what I've done in my work is to really figure out, you see, if it's something I've had to struggle, maybe the other folks have had to deal with this, and how do I make this something that's very empowering, something that's it's fun for them, something that enlightens them, and to do it in a way where we don't have to reject ourselves, to deny the cultural background that we come from, but also to understand that we don't live in our own communities, we don't work in our own families, we work in the outside world, and it's a very, very different set of rules for them. And how do I bring that knowledge to people in a way that they can choose? Yes, I'm going to learn these new skills, but I'm going to also be who I am.
You've done a lot of amazing work, even around the world. You've worked in Jakarta, you've worked in East Timor more than once. You've been to East Timor 4 times. How do you speak to women in other places in the world where their freedoms are even more restrained than they are here?
I don't necessarily speak to the women. I speak to the men. Because they're the ones that haven't heard. They're the ones that haven't seen the women. And this happened in this last trip to East Timor. The men were just taking up all the airspace, and I finally said, you know, we had done a whole exercise around team buildings and how it's important to get everyone's contributions. And I said, you know what, I'm hearing from a lot of the guys, I'm sure some of the women have things to say, and we just need to make a space for them to say it. And it was like, for the women, they were given permission. And for the men, it was like, oh, that's right. They're part of the team too. So it was not a revolution in that angry, combative conflict sense. It was more about just making people aware of what they do unconsciously.
You've come to a very important word in your life, which is the word heart. It has some particular resonance for you. How has heart entered into what you do? What's been your journey to your own heart?
Well, it's interesting. My mother always said when we were growing up, it doesn't matter how smart you are or how successful you are. What's most important is having a good heart. And back then I used to say, yeah, sure, you know. It wasn't what I was into at the time, but I now know that the heart is the place where it's our heart center, is where the love and where the power of the universe comes to us and sits in us. And it's from that place that I choose to do my work, because as I open myself up and share of my own experiences and insights with others, I understand that I am also putting out this kind of very positive energy to others so they can feel that and have that experience of being connected with their heart and being aware of their heart.
But what about the anguish in the Asian community? I don't mean the obvious anguish over the poverty, but the hidden anguish. You've addressed that in your work. How do you get people to move out of that?
I don't come across angry. I worked that out already. You know, so this is really about, hey, listen, you're going to go through this. This is kind of like a road map. Here's a tunnel. You're going to go through the tunnel. It's going to be very, very dark, but there's a light at the other end. And so my presence and my being as true to myself as I can allows and helps them to see I can be a guide for them. I can be the light at the end of the tunnel, and I just stand there. I don't have to say, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. They have to find their own way. Each one of us is different, and I don't pretend to have the answers. But I know that my having gone through whatever it is I had to go through and chose to go through to get to the other side, that they also have that ability within themselves. For me, the healing happens for me, and I explained this to the young people. Every time I come and I work with a new group, and I see that the light goes on early in them, when they're in 15, 16, 20, instead of 40, as it happened with me, it heals me. Because the joy I get is knowing that each and every one of these individuals is going to deal with whatever they have to deal with earlier in their lives, and they will have more time to be creative, to be happy, to be joyful, to be healthy, to be, contributors to other people. So it's not work. This is service.
And you do it beautifully and brilliantly. Just say something for those who are not Asian as to what the anguish is about that we speak. Why are Asians so hard on themselves? What is that about?
Oh, gosh. It's about a culture thousands of years old that has deeply imprinted, what's right and what's wrong and who's on top and who's not. And the individual pain and anguish that's experienced has to take place one person at a time. It's like that song, "Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me." In our community, in my community, it's the same thing. People need to see that it's possible, and then they need to choose. And I think that I can provide them with a way of being, of living, and a process of going through whatever they have to go through that actually lightens their load, heals the pain, the guilt, the shame, and allows them to be whole, to return to their heart.
Thank you, Elizabeth Mulan Young.
Thank you, Phyllis.